very seriously, America is at an ideological crossroads, and the future of this country is hanging in the balance. Now, you have to admit, there is a real bumper crop of wingnut Republican candidates out there trying to take over the Congress in the next 25 days. And millions of Americans, the question is, are they going to get fooled again? Tea Party darling Christine O'Donnell released another dandy of a commercial today. Let's take a look at it.
I didn't go to Yale. I didn't inherit millions like my opponent. I'm you.
You betcha. She didn't go to Yale, and she also didn't go to Oxford and a couple other schools she put on her online resume. This commercial is flat out a joke, but low-information Republican voters, you see, they absolutely eat this stuff up. Christine O'Donnell reminds me of a guy who actually did graduate from Yale.
I know the human being and fish can coexist peacefully.
American scientific companies are crossbreeding humans and animals and coming up with mice with fully functioning human brains.
Pretty close. Bush got elected twice because people, they just wanted to sit down and have a beer with him in the backyard and have a barbecue as well. Republicans have been lowering the bar on elected officials ever since. The Tea Party is just totally filled up with anti-intellectual candidates who want you to believe that they're just like you. The wingnuts and their ideological followers are, I think, incorrigible because, you see, facts just don't matter. They employ this KISS philosophy, just keep it simple, stupid. Their answer for any problem that's out there boils down to two words, and that's tax cut. At the same time, Republicans love to talk about what the American people really want.
The American people are still asking the question, where are the jobs?
The American people don't want a government takeover of health care.
Shutting down discussions is not a route to achieve that could fairly produce what the American people want.
I don't know who organizes the efforts that is needed to put obsessive partisanship aside when it gets in the way of just doing what's right for the American people.
That's the biggest lie of them all. Republicans don't have a clue what the American people want. All the polls show that the American people want tax cuts for the top 2% to expire, to be done with. Americans hate outsourcing jobs to overseas countries, and they need jobs desperately. The latest poll shows that 86% of Americans are concerned about that. Christine O'Donnell and the other brain wizards in her party are on the wrong side of all of these issues. But she's, remember, just like you. Democrats nominated the president, if we can remember. I think that Barack Obama was the Harvard Law Review president and a constitutional scholar, and that's what we did in the last elections. But, you see, Republicans chose this instead.
Do you agree with the Bush doctrine?
In what respect, Charlie?
He's also known as the Maverick, though.
So I'm just going to ask you one more time, not to belabor the point, specific examples in his 26 years of pushing for more regulation.
I'll try to find you some and I'll bring them to you.
What newspapers and magazines did you regularly read before you were tapped for this to stay informed and to understand the world?
I've read most of them, again, with a great appreciation for the press, for the media.
Like what one specifically, I'm curious that you...
all of them, any of them that have been in front of me over all these years.
Folks, the bottom line is this. Not a whole lot has changed. Republicans love to appeal to the lowest common denominator when it comes to candidates. And I know the American public is angry and scared, but it seems like half the voters have taken a leave of their senses. I know the Tea Party whack jobs are entertaining for cable news shows and consumers, but let's face it, they are dangerously out of touch when it comes to knowledge, out of touch when it comes to the problems that we face as a country right now. The stakes couldn't be any higher. I mean, we got 25 days left. The Democratic base needs to listen to this message and be reminded.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Fits right in, doesn't he? Working class Americans, I tell you can't afford to get fooled again. This is who these folks are. There hadn't been any improvement at all. It's the same old policies. And the choice is very clear. America needs smart leaders now more than ever. Get your cell phones out, folks. I want to know what you think about all of this tonight. Tonight's text survey question is, do you think Christine O'Donnell is just like you? Text A for yes, text B for no to 622-639. We'll bring you the results later on in the show. Joining me now is Jonathan Alter, national affairs columnist, Newsweek, and MSNBC political analyst. Well, let's just say, Jonathan, that we have a bevy, a collection of very unusual candidates this year. But the question is, will the anger of the voters push the quality of the candidates to the side, and may they focus on just the change? What do you think?
It may be. Look, it's too soon to know whether the House is going to go Republican. The Senate is not going to go Republican unless something totally different happens in the next few weeks. So it's touch and go in the House of Representatives. I think liberals and Democrats have to be careful about making this argument on intelligence. That's pretty off-putting for a lot of voters. There's a reason that Christine O'Donnell said, I didn't go to Yale. Most people didn't go to Yale. And it's a cheap political trick, but you can't win an election by saying, we're smarter than the other side. It's just bad politics. But it does remind me, Ed, of something that happened in the Nixon administration when Richard Nixon nominated a man named G. Harold Carswell to the United States Supreme Court, and Carswell was rated unqualified by the American Bar Association. He was denounced as having a mediocre intellect. And there was a senator from Nebraska of the time named Roman Hruska, and he said, I'm for Carswell because mediocrity deserves some representation on the Supreme Court, too. So, there are people who do want to have somebody who's like them in public office, even if they don't think they're so smart themselves. And it's a factor that we have to kind of deal with in our politics.
With that comment you're making and looking at the overview of what the Republicans like to do, they like to talk about what the American people are thinking, what the American people really want. What do you make of that? I mean, this is just this generic broad brush that they are projecting that they know exactly what the country needs.
Look, Republicans, some of their office holders might not be as smart as their Democratic counterparts, but they're pretty smart politically. They know how to stigmatize the word liberalism, for instance. They know how to repeat a series of buzzwords over and over again. President Obama is less good at repeating phrases that stick in people's minds, and wrapping yourself in the flag, wrapping yourself in the American people. You can say it's cheesy, but it does work a lot of the time. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with Democrats talking a little bit more about patriotism, entrepreneurship, the American people, things that do resonate. You do that quite well, actually, Ed. And that's where I think you've got that heartland connection, because you're not afraid, to be patriotic. So what we need to do here is kind of get past the annoyance that these dumb ads like the Christine O'Donnell ad represent, and focus on how do we get smarter in getting more progressive messages out there.
Jonathan Alter, great to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us on a Friday. For more, let's turn to Holland Cook, radio talk show consultant who's been around the media wars for a long time. Holland, you told me a long time ago that the two most important words in talk radio is you and your, and when you're communicating with people directly face-to-face, you want to talk about them. She comes out with an ad that does just that, and I would have to say that the commercial outdoes the candidate. What do you think?
First of all, for the record, I am not a warlock, and I didn't go to Yale either. But the more I watched this commercial, there was something hauntingly familiar to it. And the next time you see it, tell me if you don't get this. It's Sally Field, just a little younger. I am you is you like me. And it's like Sally Field in the Boniva commercial where she says, I've got this one body. She's kind of putting herself out there to you and smiling at the camera, and otherwise has remained in seclusion, notwithstanding the stated reason for her not being available to the national press was that she was going to be busy locally. Well, she's been busy making these TV commercials.
Well, the commercial is much more polished than the candidate, but she also hits home on the economic strife, I think, that's happening in this country. She says, she talks about how tough it is to keep a dollar. Do you think that resonates?
I think she's playing that well, and I think that she is smart to remind the voters in Delaware that her opponent is a millionaire, but she has spun her personal financial woes in a very relatable way, because who isn't sweating out the mortgage? You know, many Americans are jobless, so she's kind of turned lemons into lemonade in that regard.
What is her biggest downfall, as we always seem to talk to you on Friday for the Christine O'Donnell Weekend Review? Did she have a good week, or was this another tough week?
She had a better week this week than she had last week. Last week, we found out that Mike Castle was not going to run on a write-in. That was not good for her. And the thing about the resume inflation came out. She stayed under the radar this week, but it's not going to last long. She's got a debate on Wednesday night, so she's going to have to come out of the bunker. And then on Tuesday, the 19th, she's going to do another debate. And on the 19th, that debate is at 8 a.m. There's going to be no national TV coverage, but you can see or hear the debate on the 19th live if you go to WDEL.com. And I checked with our friends down there. They have actually gone to a third-party internet provider and added server heft so that if everybody's watching tonight finally wants to see her have to answer a live question, their server can take a punch. So that'll be on the morning of Tuesday the 19th at 8 a.m.
Holland Cook, always great to have you with us. Thanks so much tonight.